everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOps Demos That Don't Suck. I am Matthew Baum, CEO and co-founder of RevOps Co-op, which is a global community of 11,000 plus RevOps professionals from all across the globe, 45 plus different countries represented. And during our RevOps Demos That Don't Suck series, we take product demos with some of the leading go-to-market technology companies that are out there so that you can learn a little bit about the product, what they do, and how they can deliver value for you before you dive into maybe a full-on demo for yourself or a product evaluation for yourself. And with us today, I've got Frank Dale, who's the SVP of Product Management over at Salesloft, who I'm sure you all have heard about and probably have some, I don't know, maybe assumptions or things that pop into your head when you hear Salesloft. But Salesloft is really has a lot of awesome, incredible kind of brand new functionality, and I'm excited to have Frank showcase some of that for us today. They are, in short, a revenue workflow platform. But I'm not going to go into more detail on that. I'm going to let Frank kind of talk to that. So, Frank, before I start peppering you with questions, my friend, anything you want to add to that personal kind of introduction on yourself, and then anything you want to add to basically the one-liner that I gave on Salesloft as well.
No, that was great. Yeah. So we are the world's first AI-powered revenue workflow platform. What does that mean? Because it probably sounds like a lot of jargon. And if you go to all the websites, I'm sure that they all sound pretty similar. So for us, what does that mean? It means really we have a few core jobs that we partner with our customers to do. We make it easier for them to create net new pipeline. We make it easier for them to manage and close that pipeline, forecast what's going to happen, and then we take all of that data and we support RevOps and leadership in both their efforts to get a good coaching cadence going, so people are using the data to improve the way the team sells, and then to understand ultimately what is working and not working in their revenue org.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before we dive into more on those areas, because I had a lot of things pop up as you were mentioning that, I always like to start with the the problem space and kind of what are those problems, those challenges that folks in RevOps are experiencing every day, every week, every month, right? That you all are kind of on a mission to help solve for.
Yeah, I would tell you it's three things, and there's obviously a lot that RevOps does, and it varies a bit by size of company. Sometimes you're doing everything, and sometimes you have a specialized role based on how many people on your team. But fundamentally, we help RevOps teams do three things. First, we make sure that the data matches up between systems. So whatever your system of record is, if it's a Salesforce, it's HubSpot, it's Dynamics, it's another CRM. We want to make sure that that data is consistent between systems. And we do that with partners as well. So we want to make it easy for data to get into from one system to Salesloft and back to another system if that's what you want. Number two, we make it easy to put whatever it is that you use as a playbook or a process in place in Salesloft so that the seller is running your process, because we know CRMs are great as a data repository. They're not actually a great place for sales execution. And that's why companies like Salesloft exist, where the place your sellers go to execute. But when they execute, you want them to run your playbook. What you don't want them doing is random things. You want them to do things that are best practices and behaviors that we know lead to success. Salesloft is the home for that. It's the place where you institute all of those things and you make it easy for the seller to execute them. And then third, we take all of the data we generate, because we have the best data set on what happens between the buyer and the seller. We capture emails, calls, text messages. We get transcripts from conversations like this. And we pull all of that together, plus information we get from your partner tools. So imagine integrating a 6sense or DocuSign or Ironclad, whatever it is you're using. We take in information from that about your buyer as well, bring it all into one place, and give RevOps a way to understand what's working and what's not, so you can quickly make changes to improve the way the team executes. So those are the three jobs we do to support the RevOps person. We make it easy for the right data to be available. We make it easy for the team to run your process. And because they're running your process and doing things in the right way, we give you data that you can use to improve the way the team executes.
Yeah, truly full cycle. Because then obviously, when you get to that last stage, right, you just kind of start back over, right? You keep doing more of that, and the flywheel continues to hum. Sounds really great in theory, right? Love that idea. Can't imagine it's been super easy to execute on. And I know as someone who's been in the kind of the biz ops, rev ops seat before, that's always the goal, right? The things that you mentioned, but it's been super hard to and challenging to get there. You've got messy data, you've got broken processes, you've got some people following instructions and referencing the docs and the things that you've created. Other people just going rogue and doing whatever the heck that they want. So you mentioned a couple of different things around forecasting, pipeline, kind of workflow, coaching. Also, I know that at least historically, right, a lot of folks have maybe kind of seen Salesloft on the prospecting or sales engagement space. But obviously all those things you mentioned before do a lot more, really span the whole, kind of gamut. And so I'm curious maybe at this point if you want to kind of pull up some screens and start to walk us through some of those use cases. Because obviously those things that you mentioned are a lot more than just prospecting, a lot more than just sales engagement, and really do span the kind of end-to-end revenue engine, if you will.
Yeah, they do, and it's probably worth talking for a second before I pull up some screens and we just start walking through why would we even do that, right? And what I can tell you is if I look across our space or I talk to peers in other industries, so people doing my role, one of the things that you learn is that at least over the last, let's say, 8 or 9 years, most technology companies have woken up to something that people that purvey physical products have understood for a very long time, and that is it's easier to grow your business if you have more to sell to the customers that you already have, right? It's always easier to grow an account than it is to go get a net new company. The challenge with that is I think what we're seeing is a lot of people are adding products to their seller's bag, but they're not really thinking about whether or not it's actually better for their customer. And so when I think about multi-product companies, and we are a multi-product company, you're going to see some of that today. They kind of come in two flavors. There's what I would call door number one, which is not the door we've gone through. And that is, I would say, a bag of parts. You can be, to be very clear, financially successful doing that, and lots of companies do. The bag of parts kind of way to be multi-product is just we have a customer already. They may have other problems. We're going to try to add other products to sell them to you so we can grow. That can work. I think we all know companies like that. We've chosen to go down door number two, which is we only add something if it truly is better with the things that we've already got. In other words, if 1 + 1 = 3 instead of 2, then we add another product, right? And when we do that, we typically look at what's the next most adjacent workflow, because that's where you start to get additive advantages. So for instance, when we added the ability to manage your pipeline, that made sense because we were helping sellers create a lot of opportunities. Now they needed a way to close them. Eventually, it made sense to add forecasting on top of that. That was an adjacency to pipeline management. So that's typically how we think here. If we build net new products or bring them in, it's got to be better together, or we're not going to do it. And as a result, it's kind of forced us over time based on the needs of our customers to broaden what we do. But to do it from a data platform that lets us bring together all of that data that I mentioned in one place, and then lets the seller execute end-to-end workflows, because you're not jumping from one tool to the next or context switching. You're just in there in one place executing. So let me show you what I mean, and I'm going to run this from the vantage point of a revenue ops person. And feel free to ask me questions here as we bounce through. Okay, so let's say I'm starting my day. Quarter is coming up. I'm in rev ops. We're going to start with understanding what just happened. Typically, the question you're going to get from your senior revenue leader is, hey, what happened in the last quarter? And that is not an easy question to answer. And so what many RevOps professionals will do with us is they're going to start with what we call our flow chart here. It's very colorful. I like it. Most people like the colors. Very pleasing to look at. But what it does is it answers some of the key questions that you're typically going to ask. So let's say I've got different forecast categories here. I've got best case and commit. By the way, this pulls in whatever categories you have, so this is customizable. It's going to tell you in the quarter or for the date range that you set, what percentage actually ended up closed, what's still idle, what pushed out. For commit, so the stuff that we said that was going to come in, how much of that actually came in? What about pipeline? How does that go over the quarter? And the reason that that's so important is typically throughout your quarter, you're going to have different check-in points where you're trying to forecast and understand where are we likely going to land. And that number is an important number when you make your call. Understanding how pipeline behaves historically is one of the data points you're going to want to have. So that's usually where people will start with us. And you'll notice, by the way, you can come down here and quickly see any of the deals and any of the activity against those deals that made up the deals we were just looking at. Now, if I've done that, I might then want to move into our forecast. So I can go into forecast. Again, all of this is configurable. It can pull in your categories, syncs bidirectionally with your CRM. So the categories you see here, these are ones we put in our demo instance. They're not necessarily the categories you have to use. If you have different categories that you use, you can go ahead and put them in there. And we can see how are we trending against our number. And you'll notice there are a couple of things that we have here. We have an AI model that helps with predictions. That's one data point. We also have, obviously, your predictions. And you can dig into anyone in the hierarchy here. So I can look at what different teams are calling. I can look at what different individuals are calling. And if I need to, I can pull up any of the deals that are in here and dive all the way down into some of the deals. Because usually if I'm in RevOps, one of the questions I'll get is like, what is our highest revenue deal in commit? Or what's the deal we're really tracking in long shot that we might be able to pull in if you have a category called long shot? Okay, so let's say we've made this. And by the way, if I dig in, I can go all the way down into the deal, see all of the details, emails, calls, how many stakeholders are involved. I can play recordings from conversation intelligence. So all of the information I need on a given deal, it's going to be in there. But the key here is for RevOps, all the questions that take you hours to answer, we want to make that as easy as possible for you to get the information you need to be able to help call that number. Now, when you've called that number, well, the next thing you need to do is actually make it happen. And there are a couple of tools that we offer to help teams do that. If I'm a manager, you'll notice we have a pipeline tool, and this is used by both sellers and managers. And the way I think of this from a RevOps perspective is this product's job. So if our forecast product's job is to help you call the number and understand how forecast behaves over time, so the historical look back, our pipeline management product, which we call deals, it has a very specific job. And that job is to make it easy for you to guide reps to follow your process. So what you're going to see here is a list of all their deals. And in a second, we'll dive into one. This is bidirectionally syncing with whatever your CRM is. And you'll notice across the top here, this is all configurable. So right now we're showing kind of a med pick process, if that's a process that somebody runs. But you can imagine any process that you want to run, it's going to show up here. So if I'm a manager or I'm a seller, I can quickly see where are my gaps in a given deal. Not only where are my gaps, we're going to score that using a proprietary AI model that looks at a couple of things, one of which is deal fit. How does this deal compare to deals like that you have closed in the past versus deals that have not closed? And how engaged are the buyers on this deal with you? So the higher the score, the more likely it is to close. Now, if I want to dig into the details on any one of these deals, I can quickly click in. I can see all of the details that we have. I can see all of my stakeholders and what our activity is against those stakeholders. That's often a question managers, RevOps, or leadership wants to know. Who are we engaged with? Are we single-threaded? Are we multi-threaded in deals? That's often a hard question to answer. We're just going to answer it for you right there. If you want to dig into things like activity, we're going to show you all of the activities on this deal. Everything from emails to meetings, you can click into, by the way, and see all of the details for these things. So if I go in here, there's a call. I can go right into that. I can play that call. If I want to go into conversation intelligence here, I can go into any of those records. And we'll go into this one here. Actually, this is a phone call, so let me back up. So I can go into any of these records, and what I'm going to see here is not only the call, I'll see the transcript from the call. I can get a quick recap of what happened on the call and any notes on the call. And you'll notice beneath here, by the way, the action items that were captured on the call. So all of the records and the details that I need from this call, they're right there for me. So at this point, I have called my number with my forecast. I've given managers a way to audit all of the deals and dig into the details. For the seller, by the way, everything that we just walked through on the deals side bidirectionally syncs with your CRM for them, is designed so that everything is an inline edit. So it's very quick and easy for them. Typically, what we hear from teams, it is 75% faster for them to make updates here than in the CRM, which means they're more likely to do it because the number one predictor of human behavior is ease. The easier it is to do something, the more likely people are to do it. So by making it easy, they're more likely to do it, which means you're going to get the information that you need. All of it goes back to the CRM. Okay, so at this point, we've got managers managing against the framework that you want them to. In our deals product, they're spotting risk. We're proactively coaching the seller on some of these risks. So if I go back to our pipeline view here in our product, you're going to see we're calling out risks for them proactively throughout this. And we, with our score, will tell them why things are scored high or low so they know what to do. But let's say I now need to go engage with the customer. And this is, I would argue, really where a lot of the magic happens. So we're going to go into workflow. And the reason this is really important is if we've called our number and now we have managers trying to manage to make sure that we deliver on the number that we called, the most important component is sellers actually doing the right things. So are they reaching out to the right customers? Are they prioritizing the right deals? Are they having the right conversations? So if I'm a seller and I log into Salesloft, one of the first places I'm going to go is right here. So this is our homepage for workflow. And what you're going to notice across the top is a couple of things, and we're going to dig into that. In our upper right here, it's going to tell me a couple of things. A, I've completed 10 actions so far today. All of this stuff is logged, by the way, not just in Salesloft, but also to your CRM. So you've got a record of all of this activity. How many activities I've completed this month? How many opportunities have I perhaps created? But what I want to anchor on is down here. You'll notice what we've done is we've organized the activities for the seller. So we are ingesting across all net new deals the seller may have, so all open opportunities, plus existing opportunities if they've got them, as well as any prospecting activity. All of the activities a seller might do, we're bringing it all into one place. So it's no longer scattered across just your inbox or your CRM or 3 or 4 other apps. They have one place to go. That's really important because it keeps them from dropping balls. Like we can bring them into one place. We simplify the workday for them. But we're not just simplifying the workday for them. What we're doing is we're using AI to help them know what's most important to do now. Because the magic of this product, and we call it Rhythm, and it brings all of our products together, is it looks at historical activity to figure out which prospects are most likely to convert. So their behavior patterns and their profile matches people that have converted for you before in the past if you're prospecting. If you're working in-flight deals, we do the same thing. Which deals have closed in the past versus which ones that have not, and what have the profiles and the activities have looked like for those people. And so once we're in there, what we'll do is we'll take all of that activity and we're going to put it in a list. And you see this in our rhythm list, and we're going to prioritize this using what we call Conductor AI. It's a proprietary AI engine that we've built. And in our list, it's going to help sellers do the thing that's really hard for them, which is figure out where to spend their time. Because at the end of the day, time management is everything in sales. So you'll notice in our list, we have a number of different actions here, some of which are actions that you'd normally associate with Salesloft. So things like sending a meeting reminder to Isaac. So I'm going to send an email, or responding to a customer that just got back to me. But you're going to also notice a special set of actions in here as well. We're going to pull in things from other applications that you use, because one of the things that cuts down on active selling time is context switching, when the seller has to go from one application to the next to find out critical pieces of information about their buyer. So when we built our product, when we released Rhythm this year, we released it as what we like to call a signal to action engine. And that just simply means we have a lot of integrations and a lot of endpoints that partners can use to inject data into Salesloft that can be used to prioritize workflow. So in this case, you'll notice this particular seller happens to use DocuSign. Kylie Watson has viewed a contract, but they haven't signed it. And if we look at our deal score here, we're scoring this deal fairly highly. And we're telling the seller why we're scoring it fairly highly. So we're recommending that this is somebody you get back to now. And for every action in this list, they are ranked and prioritized, everything from texting back to someone because they've texted you to, hey, there's a customer that you're working right now that is in market. It looks like they're actually looking at your competitors. We know that because we've integrated with your G2 instance to pull that in. That's critical information for the seller, all the way down to things like prospecting. In this case, you might have sent a video because this particular seller prospects and closes. We based on the activity, we're telling the seller, hey, this person's more likely to commit or to convert. We're going to pull them forward. So the whole point of this is it slows down the game for the seller. You start to give them intuition that really, really experienced sellers have, and we give them an easy way to run their workflow. So all of that's pulled into one list. If, on the other hand, the seller just wants to do prospecting workflow, I don't know a lot of sellers that wake up in the morning and say, hey, it's cold call time, but some do. If you are that seller, and God bless you, we all love you, you can come in and just do that. And you can just run prospecting tasks. We make it very easy to do. They're ranked and prioritized again. You have ways in RevOps, by the way, to structure this activity and to force prioritization. So if you have things that you care about because you're doing something for strategic purposes, you can do that. If the seller, on the other hand, it's right towards the end of the month, they want to focus only on just the closing activity, they can go right here. And we're going to pull in all of those outstanding tasks for deals. So I'm going to go back to our AI prioritized list here, our rhythm list. And again, I started my career in sales, and this is probably worth saying, and I did it because my dad sold for 40 years. So I grew up around sales. Like, that was dinner table talk in my family. And one of the things I would tell you that I struggled with, and I was a, I would say decent seller. I'm a way better product person and technologist. But one of the things I struggled with in particular early on, I was in a role where I had to both prospect and close. I'm old enough that SDRs were not a thing when I started selling 20 years ago. They didn't exist. So I had to prospect and close, and I had to figure out how to balance my time. And in the beginning, I was not good at it. I did what most sellers do. I would have a quarter where I built a bunch of pipeline, and then the next quarter I would kind of close it. And then the quarter after that, I would have a pretty so-so quarter. I was feast or famine until I really figured out how to spend my time optimally between prospecting and closing. And I would tell you, I never fully got it. I just got a little bit better. What's so awesome about this product is it helps them know how much of their time to invest in both activities, because you can put in what their targets are. And based on their targets, whether they only prospect or they only close or they do both, we will adjust the tasks that they receive to make sure that they're constantly hitting the number. So let's go in here and we'll run this. So I'm going to run the first activity. What you're going to notice is it's going to navigate me where I need to go. And I have to go learn a new platform. And in this case, it's for an in-flight deal. If you're going to look in the upper right here in our right-hand rail, it's got a list of the activities that are upcoming as well as the current activity. I know why I'm here. We're giving them context. We're here because of DocuSign. DocuSign said, hey, you should reach out to this person. It's suggesting that I call if I want to. Right behind me, I have all the details for the deal. So we pulled up all of the information that we've got about the deal, plus all the prior activity. I can, if I need to, write some notes in here. So I could just say, we'll take a note and we'll pretend that was awesome. I can make my call. So I would click call here. It'll pull up whatever telephony provider you're using with us or Salesloft. When we're done, I hit log and complete. It's going to remind me, by the way, to add things like sentiments and dispositions. So if it's prospecting call, I could go in there and add whatever it is you want. All of that's configurable. That's one of the ways you can track how calls are going. I would log it. it's going to take me immediately to the next task. So again, it's going to navigate me to the next thing. In this case, it's telling me that one of my customers has responded to me. It's Dylan Jones. Again, in-flight deal. I've got all the information that I need. I can write a quick note. It's going to log it for me. You'll notice it's telling me which CRM record it's going to log it to. I'll hit send and complete, and I'm on to the next thing. Now, this next one is one of my favorites. What I want you to notice, it says meeting follow-up. Now, the thing I want you to all ask yourselves and be honest is how many of your sellers after a meeting consistently follow up? I mean, every time they send the follow-up note to the potential customer.
Yeah, probably not a lot. Also, consistently follow up, and then how consistent does the follow up look, right? Is probably the next question.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so what's so awesome about this product is what we do here, and this is why we built it as a platform. Is, as I mentioned, we built a data platform that lets us pull in information from all of the different sources: email, text messages, conversations like this one, partner information. We're going to pull it all into one place. So in this case, we know that a meeting has happened. We're going to remind the seller to follow up right after the meeting, but we're not just going to remind them. So we're going to put a task in their queue. We're going to take them to the place they need to go. They've got all this information, but what I want you to focus on here is that we have a couple of key things happening. Number one, if they can't remember what they talked about, we have a link to the recording. So if I click review, it's going to take me to the recording detail page. I can see the recording. I can see the transcript. I can see a summary we've auto-generated of the recording, as well as the action items where we've extracted that using AI from the recording. Now, if we stop there, that would be awesome. But that would not make sellers 20% more productive, which is what we do with this product. We're going to take from that recording the action items and automatically put them into this template. And by the way, if you're in RevOps, you can create a template like this. You can edit it. You can make sure that the seller follows whatever your process is. We will then go and add the action items for the seller. So we're going to auto-generate these action items that I'm highlighting using AI. The seller can come in. If they want to make edits, they're good to go. If they don't need to do edits, they're also good to go. If they want to add anything, they can write a quick note. If not, we're on to the next thing. What's awesome about this as well, by the way, is not only does this make the seller more productive, you can track whether or not they're doing this. So we provide reporting that tells you how often they're following up and whether they're following up within the time period that you want. So we have some customers that want all follow-ups to happen within an hour. We have other customers that say, hey, my team does a lot of meetings during the day. They do sometimes 6 meetings. We're a high velocity environment. If they follow up within 24 hours, we're good with that. So you set the review window, and then we track it for you, and we let you know who's following your process and who's not. So last task we'll run through right now, and then I'm going to pivot us to coaching. You'll notice in this case, we know that an upcoming meeting is happening. Again, if I'm in RevOps, if I have a specific way we want to remind the customer, you can either make it automated, where there's an automated message the customer gets ahead of the meeting to make sure that that meeting holds, or you can make it a note that you want the seller to send because you want the seller to customize it. Again, you can start the seller with the template. We will recognize that meeting's coming up. You can tell us how far ahead of the meeting you want this done. We will put this queue in this task in the seller's queue. We'll pop it up. As a seller, I could come in here, change my agenda items, write them really quickly. The second I hit send, it's off and I'm off to the next task. So I'm going to bounce out of here for a second. So at this point, let's say that we have executed our workflow. We're a seller. Now, what I would want to know in RevOps is how are things going? Like what's working for me and what's not.
Yeah.
To do that, let's start by going into coaching. One of the places that we can look at first, and we'll start with the team here, is we can look at how is the team performing. So there are over 24 different metrics. They're all customizable. You can select what they are that you can have show up here. And you can look at this across teams, across groups, and in a second, we'll dive all the way down into individuals. and we'll look at how you can have managers coach one-on-ones. So you can first track how are we progressing towards goal against whatever it is that you want to see here. You can explore how different individuals are doing. You can compare teams. So in this case, I'm looking at who's very efficient at booking meetings, and who maybe takes way more activities than we might want them to book meetings. I can also look at who moves opportunities through efficiently. I can compare teams. So I can figure out really quickly that, let's say, my AE West team is a lot more productive than my AE East team. And that leads to probably conversations with the AE East team. So you can start to look at, like, what are they not doing that AE West is doing. I can even compare individuals if I want to figure out who's doing the most effective things on my team, so I can find my bright spots and then replicate success across the team. Now, one of the nice things about Rhythm, which I just showed you a minute or two ago, was you can build those best practices into Salesloft. So if there are plays that you want all your sellers to run because you see your best sellers doing it, just build them right in, and we will tee those up for those sellers that aren't doing it to do when the right actions happen. And you'll notice we're going to show you all the way down how performance is trending against any number of metrics that you want to see. Now, if I want to have someone coach individuals, and one of the things I've heard from many RevOps professionals right now is they're focusing on how managers coach individuals because they've realized that is a way to lift teams to success.
Yeah.
We built a product that we call our coaching product. And this brings in data across everything that we do. So instead of being a coaching product that just looks at activities, we look at activities, we look at outcomes, we look at conversations, everything in one place. Again, all of these metrics are customizable. You choose what you want to see here, what you want the team to coach on. They can quickly compare individuals. And then if I'm a manager, I can drill into individuals. And by the way, if you have reps that are ramping, you can have different targets for ramping reps versus existing reps. So I'm going to dive into Amber here. And what I want you to notice across the top is, and again, this is customizable. So you can set the targets for these individuals. As a manager, I can quickly see how this person is progressing. So across the top, I can see the goals. Then in our middle row, we tend to think of this as effectiveness, efficiency, and outcomes. You can see across any number of metrics. So right now I'm looking at on-time steps. I could be looking at positive replies. I can start to see how this individual compares against the team and against the group, where they're doing well, where they're maybe not doing well. So I can start to zone in on really quickly, where does this person need help? And I can drill all the way down into the details. I can see the emails. I can play the recordings for like phone calls. I can play recordings for video calls. So I can figure out very quickly, why is this person above or below plan? And what do I need to do to help them? And how do they compare to their team? What's nice, by the way, and this was unexpected on our end, so you can decide from a permissions standpoint, do you want this to be available only to the manager and to the rep, or do you want everyone on a given team to see how everybody else in a given team is doing? One of the things we're starting to see is in some teams that make the data more available to the sellers than others do, so they don't kind of lock it down. It's starting to lead to sellers self-coaching because they're starting to compare their behaviors to people that are outperforming them on the team. And they're using this data to change the way that they execute. So it's really awesome. And it's kind of guiding teams to do the things that lead to their success. So let me pause there because we've done kind of a good harbor tour and we've covered a lot. And I'm sure you have some questions.
Yeah. I mean, the super impressed, say individually, I haven't looked at the Salesloft product in a couple of years. And yeah, man, there's a lot here. And as you were going through this, I was like thinking of one, I was like, oh, well, okay, I can get rid of tool A for that. I can get rid of tool B for this. I can get rid of tool C for that. But then I was also just thinking about, like even as you were showing some of the like the templates and the stuff that you're able to create for those tasks that we were looking at before. I was like, previously, right? It's like you try to train your team of like, okay, you got to follow up within a day or maybe the hour SLA, whatever you have. And when you follow up, use this template that I've created for you, which is in the email platform or the CRM platform. And like you said, you got some people who maybe do it, other people who don't, some people who do it, but they don't use the email template. And then obviously at the end of the day, you have no idea because you don't have any data points on any of that. And it's just based on like anecdotes that you hear from the team, right? Of like whether or not it's working. And so you're left guessing on like, is this effective? Is this not effective? Are people actually doing it or are they not doing it? So yeah, awesome stuff. Some of the questions that came to mind, and I was trying to think what might be shorter of the list of like, what are some of the most popular integrations that you have? Because obviously you mentioned like tons of the integrations that y'all can support, but maybe the shorter answer would be what are some integrations that you don't have? But maybe start with like the popular ones. And then is there anything that you don't support today that you're in the process of supporting or that's kind of on the near term roadmap for
Yeah,
integration?
yeah, happy to answer. So we support most of the things that you would expect. So in addition to many of the CRMs that I've mentioned, um, we also support many of the data platforms that you would expect. So if you want to bring in additional like metadata or contact data for prospects from, the Zoom infos of the world and the other data providers, we do that. We also work with and integrate with all of the major enablement platforms. So often the way that that will get ingested into our solution is, let's say you've created resources that you want your sellers to share with um, customers. It could be compete sheets, it could be overviews for everything from value cases or business cases you want to share with them, you name it. We integrate in two ways. One, we make it easy for the seller to just include those. So those integrations will show up in their email pane. And that's true whether they're working in our app, and we spend our time in our app today, but we also can be run inside of your inbox, so Gmail or Outlook, or inside of your CRM through our Chrome extension. So if the seller is going to send an email or something like that through us in any of those venues, they can also quickly attach, from Seismic or HighSpot or whomever you're using for enablement. What's awesome about that is then if someone views that resource, we bring that signal in, and if it passes a certain threshold, we're going to create a task for that seller in here to reach back out because that's a data point that they need to know. Other things that we tend to see a lot of customers use and are quite happy with, 6sense. We use their intent data to drive activities in our platform. One of my favorites, and it's a newer one, for those of you that use user gems, I have seen our own team both create and close a number of deals based on this integration. So user gems, if you're not familiar with it, it basically tracks when customers of yours have gone from their present employer to a new employer, and then it can alert your sellers. So in this case, the way we integrate with them, I'll start with prospecting first, and then we'll talk closing. If the seller is trying to prospect into an account and user gems recognizes that someone that was at a company that used to use you has moved to that new account in their territory, we will create a task in their queue saying, Frank Dale is now at this account. We suggest you reach out to him right now, and here's why. And we'll give them context in here too as well. Hey, we're recommending it because they were a past champion at so-and-so. They're now at this account in your territory. You should reach out. We do the same thing for in-flight deals. Hey, so-and-so just moved in. They were a champion for you at a prior account. You should reach out because you're working in in-flight op. We're seeing that create a lot of pipeline, and then B, for in-flight deals, close a lot of deals. So we're super excited about that. If your team is a little more technical, the APIs that our partners use to inject information and tasks into Salesloft, you can do that too. And so what we're starting to see customers do is if you have like a product-led motion, or you want to use product data as a trigger, you can do that in Salesloft. And we see that in three ways. If you're running like a free trial motion, you can send that signal into Salesloft as a trigger to the seller if people are engaged or not engaged in the trial to reach out. It's the same thing for in-flight deals. And for existing customers. You can use that with a client success team if you recognize risk because let's say usage is low or it's going really well, usage is high, and you want them to reach back out. We're even seeing people do that with physical products, like to recognize that, hey, a reorder rate for a customer. One of our customers that we work with is 3M. They sell physical products. And if they see that a particular customer is buying more from them, that's often a cue to reach out to look for a bigger opportunity there. And so they can inject that right into the workflow for the seller, and the seller doesn't have to go figure it out themselves.
Yeah.
So we're super excited about that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you mentioned 3M as a customer. Who are as people are, kind of in RevOps at obviously like different companies at different sizes, different stages. Who's typically a good fit for the Salesloft platform? Is there certain company size, certain sales team size, certain industry, certain vertical? Who's typically a good candidate for the solution?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we serve customers of all sizes. And fun fact, I was a customer before we joined Salesloft. So I joined through acquisition. I was the co-founder and CEO of our deals and forecast product before it became part of Salesloft. When we started, we were, as you would imagine, pretty small. We had like 12 people when we launched. We started with Salesloft. We initially had 2 people on it and then obviously grew the team. So Salesloft, we have customers that are small, like I was when we started our company before we started to grow. And then we also have large customers. So we serve people like LinkedIn, 3M, IBM, Comcast, Google. So you name it, we can scale up and down. And I believe that we can do that because we spend a lot of time trying to make the product as intuitive as possible. And I think that's anytime you're building technology for sellers, if it's not easy to use, they won't use it. And if they don't use it, you don't get the value that you're looking for. So
Yeah.
we know that our product is easy to use and it makes them more effective because, as I mentioned, when we built Rhythm, one of the things we wanted to do was get rid of a lot of the context switching that sellers have. And we know that that's worked for 2 reasons. We're seeing sellers both close more deals and complete 39% more tasks during the day using this product than before.
Yeah. And then last two questions for you, Frank. One is Ray, you're the product guy, so this is probably gonna be a hard one for you. If you had to pick just one thing that differentiates Salesloft from competition, from other manual solutions processes that are out there, what's the one thing that you would tell folks?
Yeah, it's got to be AI powered workflow. The way we use AI is wholly unique. We're the only provider in our space that is using AI to rank and prioritize tasks. And not true AI, like not if-then statements. There's a lot of that out there. Like we are actually using a patent pending proprietary AI engine to pull in what is happening with your buyer, even when you're not in the room. So all the email opens, text message responses, video views, the stuff I mentioned from DocuSign, or if they're looking at your enablement content. We're using all of that to model what is going on with your buyer, in addition to things that are happening on calls like this one. And then we're using it to prioritize workflow for the seller. We're the only company doing that. And that is wholly unique.
Awesome. And then if folks are looking at this and are like, man, I got to give me some of that for my own company, what's the best way for them to either get in touch with you guys, try the product for themselves? What's the best way for them to reach out and do that?
Yeah, so this won't surprise you. We're very pro seller. So I would say reach out to our sales team. They're happy to assist you. What you're going to see in our sales process, which is one of the things that I love and is wholly unique, they act more like consultants. Their job is to work with you to understand what are you trying to achieve and why, like what's the business case you're trying to deliver on. And then they will build Salesloft with you as part of the sales process so you can actually try it. So it's customized to you. So you have a chance to see how it's actually going to work for you versus going through sales process, buying the software, and then finding out after the fact.
Yeah. Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, everyone out there, I'd encourage you to take a strong look at at the platform here. It has it is not your not that prior sales engagement prospecting platform. It is truly end-to-end revenue workflow. Basically, every piece of the revenue engine, the journey, and all the different elements, components that RevOps is responsible for, from process to integration to data analytics, forecasting. It is all there. It is all in one spot. Yeah, this is exciting stuff, Frank. So thank you for walking us through this. Thank you for for sharing this with the broader kind of RevOps community. And yeah, for everyone out there, go to salesloft.com, grab a demo for yourself, or obviously we got a bunch of Salesloft folks that are in the Slack group and the community as well. So ping them there. There's a lot of Salesloft customers as well in our Slack group, so ping folks there to get the lowdown and maybe see how some others are using it as well. But with that, Frank, my friend, I will let you run. Everybody else
Awesome.
watching, I'll let you run as well. So take care, everybody, and I'll see you all on the flip side.
Thank you.